obviously there's three of us on the call, and I'll start. I'm based here in New Zealand, so I'm a primary trained teacher. I trained at Massey in Palmerston North, and taught in New Zealand for 3 years before I went and lived and taught in the UK. So that's my experience of living overseas. When I came back, I started supporting other Kiwi-based educators, sort of traveling and finding jobs overseas. And so based here in New Zealand, you can reach out to me anytime. I've taught in primary and special needs schools. So I'll pass on to Anitra.
Oh, hi everybody, I'm Anitra. I'm a Kiwi. I trained at Unitec as a dancer and then went on to do my postgrad education a few years later. So I'm a dance and drama qualified teacher, and then went to teach in the UK, and then found myself working there in education recruitment. And now I'm in Melbourne. I'm based on the Victoria Permanent Opportunities team. I look after all of the performing arts educators, but I'm part of a team that are mostly all ex-educators as well. And we all look after different subject areas. So we help people get permanent or short-term contracts in Victoria-based schools.
Yeah, and hi everyone, I'm James. I've been working at ANZUK UK for about 12 months now. I definitely don't have the overseas teaching experience that Claire and Anitra have, but I work in the camp side of things here in Sydney. So we work with educators to on day-to-day positions for short blocks and up to kind of one-term blocks. So I'm definitely happy to talk to any of you about that.
Thanks, guys. It's really, really good having, Australian-based consultants on this call. As I said, it's not something I've done myself. So having people on the ground, Anitra and James know schools in Australia. They've educators, Kiwis have gone through them. So yeah, it's really great having them on the call. I'm sure you'll get a lot of value out of that. So to introduce ANZUK UK, for those of you who aren't familiar with an agency, it's not something that as teachers we use very often. The way we work is we charge the schools a fee for our services. So we're a free service to our educators, and we're here, our sort of thing is an exceptional experience. So we want to find the right job for the right educator, and it's all about getting to know you and matching you up with what you're after. So we are a global company. We've got offices here in New Zealand, and that's under EP Education. They've got offices in Auckland, Wellington, Christchurch, and support educators finding roles here in New Zealand. So if you're sort of in between jobs or looking for a new role, or you want daily relief teaching in the main centres, then EP is able to help you. So you can reach out and let me know, and I can put you in touch with the right person there. In Australia, you'll see we've got offices across Australia. We've got a really strong network there, supporting educators going to Australia, but also Australians who are going to travel on. So the pipelines are coming and going both ways. We've also got offices in the UK. So if teaching in the UK is on your radar at some point, then we can definitely support you with that as well. The Canadian offices are there to support the Canadian educators leaving Canada. Unfortunately, we haven't got roles within Canada at this stage. So yeah, so very global. We try and to sort of support wherever you're wanting to go, and there's lots of options there. Right, I've got to click my button. Okay, so why teach in Australia? When we have a chat with you, it's good for us to find out what your reasons are for wanting to head to Australia. There's a huge demand for educators right across Australia. So obviously job opportunities, we have that in New Zealand as well, but you'll get more variety in your career. There'll be good opportunities for progression going up the ladder. So that's one reason people go. Salary is a real big pull for a lot of our educators, and we'll bring those up soon, the pay rates, but you are looking at about 30% more than what you would be earning here in New Zealand. So coupled with a really good cost of living over there and lifestyle, that's sort of one of the biggest attractions for Kiwis heading over there. For new grads going over, it's a nice easy route to carry on towards getting your full registration. So you know, it's possible to go straight from uni and teach in Australia and then sort of get around mutual recognition for New Zealand that way. So it's pretty nice and straightforward transition to go over. And also any international experience on your CV is really valuable as well. Principals love it, so it's a great talking point, and it's also can be a really nice stepping stone on if you were thinking of moving on to the UK as a next stage. Also some international schools base their curriculum off the Victorian curriculum, so again that could be a nice route if you're sort of looking further ahead to work in international sector as well. Okay, just a quick one. We're going to have a try with a poll. If you could find the chat box somewhere in your menu there, if you could just indicate who we've got in the call in terms of whether you're an early childhood, primary or secondary teacher, just so we know who we've got, whether we need to even mention primary opportunities or early childhood.
Majority primary.
Okay, great.
Yes, yeah.
Is it mainly, have we got any early childhood, Anitra?
No, I don't think so. We've got primary and secondary, and one Natasha is ECE and primary.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Majority primary.
Okay, for ECE teachers, I actually accidentally sent you the sent you the webinar from last week, which was the specialist ECE webinar, so you'll find that really useful. For this webinar, it might be a bit more geared to primary, secondary, but you'll still, you know, a lot of it will cross over. Okay, so making the transition. So obviously, if you've got a New Zealand passport, you can walk into Australia whenever you're ready and be able to start work. There are no restrictions around that, so that's nice and easy. If you are here and you're on another passport, then you'll need to reach out to us to get some advice around what your options are. Some nationalities are able to secure a working holiday visa, and others, depending on what you teach, you might be able to secure a sponsorship role for Australia. But we'll touch on that a little bit more when we talk about perm. Qualifications, this is a question that a couple of you did have on the registration form when you signed up. So generally, primary and secondary, if you train in Australia, it's a 4-year degree. In New Zealand, obviously, we've got the 3-year option, 3-year degrees as well. So because Australia is state by state individualized, it can vary on what your options are around that. So jump in, James and Anitra, whenever you want. But basically, we have mutual recognition, so you should be able to register. So for example, Victoria, you can register with their Victoria, the VIT here. That's the equivalent of the Teachers' Council here in New Zealand. That seems to go fine, and even if you've got a 3-year degree, you'll be granted VIT and you should be able to go and work, no problems. They do look at it case by case. New South Wales is a little bit trickier, we understand. Is that right, James?
Yeah, so it's basically it is a little bit of a grey area in New South Wales in terms of being kind of case by case. A lot of the time with that 3-year degree, you will need to be nominated by a school to receive your NESA qualification. Yeah.
Right. So opportunities for perm, or if you're looking for a long-term or perm role, that will be your best route to try and get into New South Wales.
Yeah.
There's
And
also, sorry,
no, good.
There's also an initiative at the moment. There's a massive teacher shortage. I know in Victoria, I'm probably assuming state, like interstate as well in Australia. And if you are in your final year of study, you can apply for a permission to teach, which is essentially candidates that are almost about to graduate can also take on roles in schools at the moment. So it's a really good time for educators. There's a lot of demand here and not enough teachers. So happy to talk to anyone about that as well. But I guess it's a little different being a New Zealand teacher, as you probably have to be on site in New Zealand to complete your studies. But yeah, if anyone was doing anything remotely and you were interested in teaching whilst you were completing your degree, then there's options to explore there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, so I guess it's a case by case thing. And if you aren't sure, then just reach out and we can sort of get some good advice and feedback for you on that. As I mentioned, the teacher registration, each state has their own registration body. So the VIT you're able to apply for before you arrive into Australia. You can do that, a year or 6 months out. NESA, the New South Wales body, is you need to go in face to face and get that done on the ground. So sometimes our educators will go over for a holiday in July and get the process underway. And then, that's ticking away so that when they return, it's all done for them. Otherwise, you need to be prepared to have a bit of downtime when you arrive to get that done. And QCTU Queensland, that's really only an option at the moment for secondary or ECE, but you can get that done also before you arrive. But again, we'll support you around what to do and getting these completed. And then the Australian curriculum, I just popped that down there. Generally, we're really aligned, but yeah, Anitra, James' sort of feedback is that, yeah, settling in, it will take a little bit to get used to, but yeah, it's not going to be too much different from what you do in your New Zealand classroom. Do I have to drag this out of the way? Yeah.
We just had a question in the chat. In New South Wales, do they take into account your number of years in service as a primary teacher, assuming you attained a 3-year degree?
Or is that in terms of being eligible for your NESA?
Or maybe NESA.
Is that in terms of, are you asking that in terms of your registration in Australia or in terms of your salary assessment? Chris.
Okay, I'll
your registration.
Yeah, so they do take into account the number of years, but it does just depend on NESA and obviously, yeah, the degree and the number of years. I think it basically just depends on, yeah, your application and who a lot of the time is looking at your application.
Yeah, so it's quite individualized. Yeah, it's a hard one. Yeah, so it's almost worth, yeah. Okay. Okay, we'll come back to that. We'll crack on in terms of locations where you can work. So we've got Anitra in Melbourne, and I've sort of started in the wrong place, but so the Victorian office covers Melbourne, but it also covers sort of the whole state of Victoria. Am I in the right place? My geography's terrible.
Yeah, we're down the bottom.
This is ACTA. Is that right?
Victoria's, down the bottom.
This one.
Yeah.
Oh God, terrible geography. Right, so Victoria, they cover the whole state of Victoria. So we've got a really wide reach right out to the borders. So you can be in metropolitan Melbourne, or you can be in a sort of town the size of Hamilton, or you can be somewhere like Taihape. So loads of options right across. And within Melbourne, we've got 3 offices right there. So we cover daily and permanent for all year levels, and Vic. So it's sort of covered. It's a really good landing board to go to. Okay, so then we've got ACT. Is that ACT there? The next one up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at the moment, ACT is just early childhood focused, and they can have any kind of work they want there. But moving up, we've got the New South Wales, which is huge as well. And again, that'll be metropolitan Sydney and all of the regional New South Wales as well, right out all the way. And that's everything there. So we've got early childhood, primary, secondary, and you can get relieving or permanent roles. And then we've got Queensland. So Queensland really, it's a really tricky area to get into as a primary teacher. You really need, it's tough. So at the moment, your best chances of getting into Queensland are if you're a secondary teacher wanting long-term work, or otherwise early childhood, daily or perm. And then coming soon is our Perth office, which is going to be up and running shortly. So that's watch this space. Okay, another quick poll. If we can get an idea of, after my amazing geography, what sort of state where you think that you might, or where you're interested in being based or heading to. We'll go into a bit more detail on those as well. And you may not have a favourite at the moment, but. What's coming out top, Anitra?
Bit of everything, really.
Good.
Queensland, New South Wales, Victoria, Melbourne or Sydney. Yeah, everything.
Okay, great. All right. Okay, so Vic, I'll hand this over to Anitra, who's there right now.
Yeah, cool. So I'm based in the central Melbourne, Metro Melbourne office. We've got 2 offices here, one on St Kilda Road and one in Collingwood. We've also got offices in Geelong, which is down the coast, and one in Dandenong, which is like further south of Metro Melbourne. I guess our role, so when we use words like CRT and permanent opportunities means a short-term, anywhere from 5 weeks contract to permanent ongoing, you're there for life if you want to be, contracts as well. So the difference here, it doesn't really work like this in New Zealand, but essentially the schools, which are faith-based schools or independent schools, contract us to recruit for them. And that means it's at no cost to you. We match you with the school, we prepare you for interviews, that sort of thing. And then you go on contract with the school. So you're not employed by ANZUK, we're sort of the middleman, and it essentially helps them with their recruitment process. Whereas if you were doing CRT, which is casual relief teaching, which is just as a reliever essentially, then you are employed through ANZUK. And we, James will tell you a little bit more about the temporary side of things, but that means that we can offer you casual work. It could be in government schools, faith-based schools, or independent schools. And you could do anything from 1 day a week to guaranteed 5 days a week on our ambassador scheme. So there's lots of options. We also have after school care. We also have early childhood, anywhere from primary to secondary. We also place leaders, principal level placements as well. So we've got a bit going on.
Cool. That ambassador, so that's guaranteed, isn't it, Anitra?
Yeah, I think James, you're probably better positioned to answer this because I don't do too much CRT, but.
Okay, move on to New South Wales.
Yeah, so the ambassador program is also known as our GWA, so a guaranteed work agreement. So that's where we guarantee you however many days you're kind of looking for work. So it might be 4 days a week. And yeah, basically we're guaranteeing you those 4 days. If we don't manage to find you work for one of those days or any of those days, we will still pay you for that day. It's basically just showing how kind of confident we are in being able to get you work on those days. So yeah, it's obviously dependent on your location and if you can kind of travel to different schools and you're open to being called maybe the day before or even the morning of. but it's definitely a great way to guarantee those days of work, kind of reduce some of the nerves that come with a casual position. So opportunities in New South Wales, I work in the temp team, so we look after casual relief teaching, CRTs. As Anitra said earlier, at the moment there's so many opportunities available and not enough teachers. So I mean, I saw all of your comments there saying you're primary teachers, and it'd be great if you guys were here for tomorrow, pretty much. We also work with permanent positions, executive roles, all the same as Victoria, early childhood. Ambassador programs are, the ambassador program is really popular in Melbourne. They have a lot of ambassadors, not as many in Sydney, just because it's just more so dependent on your location, your willingness to travel and whatnot. So there's also OSH Care and opportunities in special education, primary, secondary, opportunities to do all of them in casual relief teaching.
Cool. And some people, we had a couple of educators arriving in January, and while they were waiting to get their NESA, this is in New South Wales, they did some OSH, I think, was it? So that's their after school care equivalent. So you can sort of be at least earning some money while you're waiting or, getting settled in, which is a good backup option.
And you can also work as a teaching assistant, which we call a TA as well, while you're waiting for your registration to come through.
Cool. Yeah. Great. So this is James.
So obviously, I'm not sure how many of you have worked as a casual before, but there's a lot of benefits to both casual and permanent roles, obviously. In terms of casual, it's just getting to know your local schools, getting to go to a variety of different schools. We'll look to match you up with schools that are close to your area, obviously. We know that if you're moving to Australia, you're probably not wanting to spend, I don't know, an hour and a half or an hour, 45 minutes on public transport. You probably want to get home quickly. We'll try and make that happen for you. Opportunity to develop and enhance your teaching skills. Being put in those different environments obviously lets you do that, dealing with different students, different staff members. It's just all going to increase your skills as a teacher. The lighter workload is a big one. I talked to a lot of teachers after maybe they've come from like a really intense perm role and they've gone back to casual, and they say, oh my God, I'm not taking anything home with me. So, I mean, those casual roles are really great for that. Expand your teaching areas. I mean, we've got special education, primary, secondary, and depending on the school, you can teach in all different areas. I mean, special education schools are crying out for teachers at the moment. And the experience a range of different settings, you get to go across Sydney, see the sites. So there's a lot of different benefits.
Yeah, I found when I did the CRT, because I only had taught long term in New Zealand, and once I moved into some daily relieving, I'd only taught 1 year level in New Zealand. So after a couple of weeks, I'd taught all the years. That's how I got into special needs, because you have a go at doing different things, and doing daily, it doesn't really hurt trying different things, and definitely can attest to the no workload, leaving school at 3:20 and that's it, you don't have to think about it again. So definitely some good positives of if you've been slogging it out here for a few years, it's quite nice to give yourself a break and do a bit of relieving.
Another kind of area we've found really helpful as well is in terms of sourcing perm opportunities through casual teaching. Teachers do kind of 2 or 3 weeks casual at a school, and then the school, obviously with the teacher demand at the moment, they don't want to lose these teachers, so they're signing them up to 1-term, 2-term contracts. So it's definitely a way to get into different schools, get your name there, and then possibly get something longer term out of that as well.
Should I talk about this one?
Yes, please.
Cool. So I'd say it's pretty similar state by state with permanent opportunities. As I mentioned before, that means you're employed by the school. There's a range, there's literally everything you can imagine. We place, loads that are 1 day a week to full-time, permanent, ongoing positions, and within every subject as well, all the way from primary up until secondary. So I'm not sure if you've got any specific questions around that, but a part of our service as well is to help you with your CV. We actually reformat your CV and we've got years and years of experience about what reads well in terms of independent and faith-based schools, HR looking at CVs. So we reformat your CV for you. We'll write you a blurb and try and, incorporate all of your other experiences and skills into your blurb to really try and sell you to the schools. We support you to get that role. And then we stay in touch as well. If your contract ends at a school, we can try and get you another one and work together just to find you the right position, essentially.
And the perm team, you'll have contact with, so if you're going to, you'll have contact with Anitra and her team quite early on in the piece. So you'll be speaking to them a lot right at the start. So they really get to know you and what you're after, what kind of schools you'll suit. And yeah, it's a really personalized process. And then interviewing Anitra, how does?
Yeah, so I mean, we also have a lot of experience. We work really closely with the independent and faith-based schools here in Victoria. So we have an idea of what questions at each school you're going to be asked. We've got like whole spreadsheets of interview questions and that sort of thing. So we can do preparation with you, help you formulate examples, basically just like try and set you up to be the most prepared as possible for your roles. We can support you through that process. So.
And is that normally done on Zoom, the platform, or
the interview? The actual interview?
Yeah.
It's case by case. Now they're inviting people to come on site. There's not really any restrictions happening here in Victoria, so it's always better to go in person if possible for you, because you get a good feel of the school. You also have to make sure that school's a right fit for you, as well as you be the right fit for them. But yeah, Zoom is also an option.
Yeah, because you've placed quite a few recently over Zoom from here.
Definitely, yeah. We've placed people in Ireland that have arrived and literally gone to work the next day. So yeah.
Okay. And I think Anitra, because Anitra, part of her role is sort of covering a regional. Is that right?
Not me specifically, but there's a sort of a sub team on the permanent opportunities team in Victoria, and also there's regional based consultants for New South Wales and Queensland as well. We support a lot of schools that are rurally based in regional Australia. There is really amazing opportunities in these schools. Quite often you'll have lots of different subjects on your timetable. There's sort of like an accelerated option for leadership, that sort of thing, because they find it hard to get educators to relocate to these areas. So career-wise, it's a really good move. There's also, I think we're going to talk about the TFI a little later, aren't we, Claire?
Oh yeah, I think that's next. Yeah. Do you want me to jump onto that now?
Yeah, maybe. So
sorry, I'll go there and then I'll come back.
There's also an initiative only in Victoria called the TFI, and it's targeted financial incentives. So essentially it's schools that are identified by the education system here that are finding it hard to get quality teachers. And that's not necessarily because of the actual school, it's generally because of where they are. So they'll offer an incentive. So for example, it could be $50,000 if you sign a 2-year contract and complete your contract. You get paid that $50K the day you start. If you did end your contract early, you would have to pay like partial back depending on when. But it's a really great way to get 2 years experience under your belt, especially if you're a grad or if you just want something new. 50K incentive is pretty awesome.
Yeah.
So there's lots of options, and those schools are looking for primary and literally every kind of secondary subject teacher as well.
And yeah, you've got to picture that's regional Victoria, not sort of outback Australia. So it's sort of more towny, isn't it? Anitra, sort of more.
Yeah, absolutely. There's also TFI associated schools in Metro Melbourne. They don't pop up as much. Generally, those schools will be associated with the TFI because it could be like needing strong behavioral management, or for whatever reason, they're finding it hard to find teachers for that particular position. But the ones rurally, the barrier really is just getting teachers to move rurally. So that's why they apply the incentive.
Yeah. Okay, so moving on to pay rates. Oops, sorry, I'm just trying to get this out of the way as well. You can just have a bit of a look over that. So these are the daily rates at the top. So if you start in that, I think just chip in if you don't agree, but you're starting for a new grad at $335 a day, and New South Wales just a little bit more, $345. I haven't got the Queensland daily rates because it's not really on offer there.
Yeah. Victoria perm roles actually would be higher than 60K.
Yeah.
That's probably more government school maybe, but
right. Yeah.
like the lowest would probably be for a first year teacher around 72K, and that would be in a Catholic. And I've placed first year teachers in prestigious independent schools that are offered around the 80K mark for their first year teaching. So when I first started teaching in New Zealand, I was teaching at a private school, and I'm pretty sure I was on like 49 back then, or around 50. So the pay rates are just way better.
Yeah, I need to update that. Yeah, so that's not 60, that's more sort of 72.
More 70, yeah. And that's Catholic. Independent is higher, definitely.
Okay, so that's your minimum start rate. And then New South Wales, I've sort of put around 70 as well. Yeah, so it's just a bit of an indication. We have got the scales, and again, it's an individual thing. You can sort of see where you fall on the levels, but if you want to reach out, we can sort of check that up for you as well.
Yeah, and if you, I sort of spoke more to the grad pay rate, but if you are a more experienced teacher, you can just get a statement of service from your school, and then your salary assessment will be based on your experience in New Zealand as well. So that's all valid. If you taught for 5 years there, you'll come in on a level 5 salary assessment here, which is going to be much higher. Usually level 11 is the top, and that's 10 plus years experience, and that's usually at the lowest around 108K. So it's just money that you'd never be able to get in New Zealand, really, in terms of teaching. And then I've also placed like a teacher at a really prestigious independent school that's 10 plus years, and they've been on around 120K.
Right. Awesome. Yes, it's a nice straw card. And then TFI on top for if you want to go into those, regional areas. So yeah, feel free to jump in on this one too, guys. James, you'll know more about Ready to Work than I. But once you get over there, we've got a purpose-built app that built through us called Ready to Work. James, do you want to?
So what Claire said, really, I mean, it basically allows you to decide what days you're looking to work and whatnot. Maybe you just don't want to work any Fridays. You can just log out all your Fridays on the app, and we won't be booking you in for any shifts that day. So, or for example, just a random Wednesday, you have an appointment, you can go unavailable for that day. So when we book you for shifts, I'd say about 95% of our bookings are done probably in advance. So letting you know a day or two, hopefully a week or two before, that we have work for you. But there is that 5% of bookings where we call you at 6:30 in the morning for that general cover. So if you're not looking to be called the morning of, you can just jump onto Ready to Work and say you're not available. We won't be calling you. So it's definitely catered around your timetable. And as I said earlier, we're looking to, we know that you're looking to travel, probably see the sites. This app really, really allows you to do that.
And it's also got a really good map function for the consultants, so they can see where you live and where you can easily get to those schools. So you'll get sort of that nice local work generally. The dedicated consultant, I think this is something that ANZ UK do really well. So as I said, right from the early start, you might say, I want to do relieving only, I don't want a long-term job, and I want to go to New South Wales. You'll be put into contact with James. You'll get to know James. He'll speak with you on you'll get to see them and spend time with them before you even arrive. So it just makes your arrival so much better. And you've obviously got James on the ground who knows, he's got the industry knowledge there for you. Vice versa, you might say, look, I really want a long-term I've got friends in Melbourne. Then you'll be connected with Anitra or someone in her team, and you'll build that relationship nice and early on. So I think that's really big. The other thing I think ANZUK do really well are the events and the community that we build. So before you leave, we now COVID's moved on, we're trying to build up again and get some pre-departure events going, educator events across the country. And then all the local offices in Australia are having, I think, James, we had Cormac on last week. He said you guys are doing them, you were doing educated events.
Yeah, I think in about 3 weeks we're having one just in our office. We're inviting a lot of our educators to come in, and it's a great one for obviously international educators who may not know as many people around Sydney, to meet other teachers, talk about your experiences and whatnot. Make some friends and all that stuff. So, and meet us as well in our office, have some drinks and whatnot.
Yeah, I think it's pretty. They're all the offices are great. Some educators pop in. I think I had someone who came in and went into the Melbourne office and ended up having lunch with them and then going out to the pub, and that was their sort of first arrival. So everyone's really welcoming, and it's really, nice sort of base for you to go to. I'm just highlighting the blog page because it is really, really good. There's heaps of information on there. You can type in, there's resources. If you're looking at Melbourne, we've got area guides. We've got past webinars. So if you're sort of thinking about the UK, you can jump on and access the recording of previous webinars there. There's just heaps of information on there. So yeah, that's a really good resource. And another group that would be really good for you to jump into is a Facebook group. It's ANZUK International Educators. So that's the Australian pipeline, people who are going to Australia, and there's people who are already there. You'll find that there's English, Irish, Canadians on there as well. But yeah, again, really good community to join. And this is our events page. I'm actually going to email you a link to that, but that's where we'll be putting up any of the New Zealand-based events that we'll be hosting too. Okay, I've just got to shuffle this around again. Right, so a bit of a timeline of how it rolls. It's too low. Sorry, everybody. How do I go? Okay, so this is sort of 12 months out. This is a general way that it could go. It often doesn't go this way, and sometimes we'll have someone contacting us, 3 days before they fly out, and that's fine. We can get it done in that time. But generally, we'll have someone reaching out to us, and I'll have a chat to you from there. We try and get a CV from you quite early, but some people, it's a big job putting together the CV, and that doesn't always come in that early. So, but we'll support you around perhaps choosing the best time to get there, and then try and get you into our communities, the Facebook groups and other things. And a lot of you are at this sort of stage already, so sort of at the point of getting further information. If you're wanting day-to-day work relieving, then it is quite good to jump on to the ambassador program. It's like James said, it's just nice to have that backup option. You just know that you're always going to be able to pay your rent every week and that kind of thing. So at that point, we can sign you up to the ambassador program. We've also got a bonus around that as well, an arrival bonus. So if you do sign an ambassador program before you arrive, then you can get, I'll have to email you out the details on that. That's for Victoria. I don't know if you're offering that New South Wales, James.
The bonus.
Yeah. So that's a Victorian bonus, but there is that available too. Visa and compliance. So the things that you'll need to have sorted before you leave New Zealand, the big one is obviously the registration with the relevant state body. That's the major thing, really. Once you've done that, other compliance will need to contact referees, and everything else is pretty straightforward from there. Your Skype with your Australian consultant normally will happen quite a bit earlier on in the piece. And then, yes, pack your bags and arrive. So for those of you who I haven't spoken to, I will be sending you an email with a recording of this, and also a link so that you can book in a call with me. It's really good just to have a casual chat, even if you're not quite sure when you're looking at going, just so we can connect and then sort of put you in where you fit in the pipeline and sort of be giving you the right information at the right stage. So yeah, jump on that link and book a call when it suits you. There's a whole sort of range of times you can get in with me. Just highlighting, we've got a referral scheme as well. So if you refer or talk to us about one of your friends and they go and teach in Australia, you'll get $100 for each friend who goes, which helps build up the travel budget. If you refer someone and they go to the UK, you'll also get a referral bonus that way as well. This sort of contact options, you'll have all of these through on the email as well. Yeah, but that sort of next step is sort of jumping online and booking a call with me. I'll open it up for questions now because we've sort of whipped through that. And I'll pull up the chat myself if anyone's got any questions, if I can find it. Okay, so yeah, feel free. You can actually I've minimized it now, turn your camera on and ask some questions, or you can just reach out and chat in the chat if you've got any. I've lost it completely now, Anitra.
I've got the chat up.
I don't know what I've done with it.
Hello. I'd like to pop in with one. I'm not Sarah. I'm Sarah's son, Callum. I'm a teacher in training, a third year, and I was wondering if it's possible to complete my registration with the 2 years of teaching in Australia. If you guys would know.
Yes, it is. It definitely is in Victoria. I know it is harder to do this in New South Wales for some reason. Those sometimes aren't totally aligned in terms of the registration, but in Victoria, it definitely is. And we can definitely get you more information on that. James, do you know anything about the New South Wales region?
So you said you were 3-year trained, sorry, or you're third-year student?
So I'm in my third year of teacher training, so my final year of teacher training. But then there's the 2 years after. Well, there's the 5-year, yeah. There's you have to complete the 2 years of teaching within a 5-year time span. So I'm wondering if I can complete those in Australia.
Yeah, I'm not too sure if you can do that in New South Wales.
I don't think you can. I don't think you can. Okay. I think there's a bit of a loophole there. Yeah, I spoke with the global team about that recently, but Victoria, you can. It is valid in New Zealand. And okay. Same if you were to go further afield, for example, in London, you can do 1 year abroad. That is valid, and then you'd have to do 1 year in New Zealand to your registration. But you know, as you said, that's within 5 years. So even if you were away for 3 years and then you went back and did 1 year, you'd be registered then.
Okay. I'm probably specifically looking for in sort of Queensland sort of area. Would that be sort of?
I'll have a look into that one for you, Callum. Are you secondary?
See, I believe I'd be mostly looking at sort of primary teaching, I'd say.
Okay. Yeah. It's a bit trickier with the primary, but I'll find out and get back to you on that one with our Queensland.
And you guys also mentioned how it's a bit, well, less stressful or something, just teaching in Australia as a whole. Would you say, because I was curious about how different the marking and sort of structure as a whole when it comes to that, like sort of transitioning from what I've learned from New Zealand over to Australia, how much of a difference or change is it?
I think it's really school by school, honestly. Each school has different systems. If you were to go into an independent school, you could definitely expect the expectations to be higher because they're paying, you know, the school fees are a lot higher. And there's a lot of sort of contact directly with parents and that sort of thing. In terms of the Catholic sector, the expectations aren't as high. And you can always work in government schools, but with the permanent opportunities team, we don't place in government schools purely because they don't have recruitment costs. So I'm not too sure what's going on in the government schools in terms of permanent opportunities. But I think a lot of the feedback that our candidates have given us are that the curriculums are quite aligned, especially with primary. But I don't know if it is less stressful, honestly. I would say it would be school by school. It's hard to say.
Oh, thank you. Should I just contact you guys afterwards about the whole cementing the degree and all that later on with the stuff on screen?
Yes, I'll follow up with you on that, Callum, but would you be able to send me an email? I'm not sure what email address I've got for you. Is it under... Yeah, if you could send me an email to reach out, then I'll follow up with you.
Okay, would it just be the clear.s at
this one.
That one? Cool.
Yeah,
thank you. I'll do that.
UK.education.
Cool. I'd say that's me for today. So yeah,
put that
thank
on
you
my
guys.
to-do.
Okay.
See ya.
Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Jasmine has her hand up.
Hi, yeah, sorry. My husband and I, we're both teacher trained in primary in New Zealand, but we've just recently moved to New South Wales, Sydney.
Mhm.
And we've just, we've applied for my husband's teacher accreditation, and it's been approved. And he's done 1 year of his registration in New Zealand before he moved here. And we've just had a baby, so I've been staying at home. But is the proficient teacher accreditation equivalent to the teacher registration? Because when we got his NESA approved, it came back saying that he just needs to work towards achieving his proficient teacher accreditation.
Yeah, so basically, I think it's basically 99% of people who arrive from overseas are granted the provisional status for their NESA, and then they just have to work towards their proficiency while they're teaching at a school. So did he get his NESA? Has he already found a position, a permanent position?
No, he hasn't found a permanent position yet. We're just working on his CV at the moment. We've only just received an email yesterday saying that his accreditation had been approved.
Oh, fantastic. And have you applied for yours? Have you applied for yours, Jasmine, or you said you haven't?
Yeah, I applied for mine last night, and so after his one was approved, I had sent my application in last night as well. And so we're just I was wondering what the proficient teacher accreditation was equivalent to, but it's not the same as the teacher registration in New Zealand.
I believe it is the same. It's just with your NESA, there's different levels to it, which impact the pay rate, especially on a casual basis. So you're either a conditional, a provisional, or a proficient teacher. So a proficient teacher is someone with, I believe it's more than a year's experience and more than 100 hours of professional development experience. Conditional is for final year students who are granted permission to teach, and provisional is the other one that isn't for final year students, but those teachers that haven't done that 100 hours of professional development.
Oh, okay, and so with that, you can complete that as a casual teacher as well, could you? Because I know it's asked for like evidence and stuff in there. You can,
but a lot of the time, it's a school will have to support you with achieving your proficiency. Yeah.
Oh, okay. And is that a mentored thing as well? Like, do you have to have a mentor teacher as well?
I don't believe so.
Oh, okay.
Jasmine, can I send you? I'll send you an email if you like tomorrow morning, and we can reach out and talk more over the phone.
Oh yeah, that'll be great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's all right.
There's got a couple of questions in the chat from Jessie. It says, I'm guessing it's school by school through those, should we be planned with resources, etc., or does most schools have this sorted when you come in the morning? So that's based on CRT. James, do you want to?
Yeah, so about 99% of the schools have work prepared for you. There have been times where you are required to do that. The thing is, when we book you in for shifts, we have information about the shifts. So about year groups, we've had people there before. We speak to the people at the school when they make the booking. So we get that information and we relay that over to you when we book you in for a shift. But most of the time, there is work left behind for you.
Yeah, it should be. That's really the school's responsibility. But in my experience as a relief teacher as well, there's always going to be times where things haven't been planned, and so you just have to have something up your sleeve, even whether it's a game or just like a little resource that you can use to keep the children.
Yeah, you'll pick up lots of things as you go around the different classes as well. You definitely get better and better at,
There's also another one from Chris. It says, as a primary trained teacher who has been teaching new entrants and year 1 students for 6 years, would working in ECE be a possibility, or would you need to be specifically trained in early childhood education?
They are quite strict on that, the ECE over there. So you do generally need an ECE specific qualification, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Even though it's a huge demand, but yeah.
Caitlin, you got your hand up there?
Yeah, hi. You've kind of already answered this a little bit based off like Jasmine and Callum, but my brain is just like got so much going on right now. So I thought I'd just ask it in my words, just so I can like understand it fully. I did a 3-year Bachelor of something, and then I did the 1-year Masters of Primary Teaching and Learning in Wellington. And I am a first-year BT teacher this year. And I was looking at potentially moving like this time next year, once I've completed 1 full year of like teaching. If I was to then go over to Australia and let's just say I work for 3 years, would one of those years count towards that full teacher registration? Or is it, because you kind of said that if it was the 2 years, it wouldn't, but then if it's 1 year, like if I already had 1 year under my belt, and then I came over there, would that make me fully registered?
Definitely in Australia, in Victoria, yes. The question mark is around New South Wales because they have a different rule in terms of teacher registration. So, James, you know anything more about?
Okay, no, that's cool.
I think the New Zealand Teachers Council would look at it though as a year towards the New Zealand registration. Do you think that, Anitra?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So you could add it towards your 2nd year for you to gain New Zealand registration.
I was thinking because because I've done once I decide to go over next year or whatever, and then I do, let's just say I teach there for 3 years or 5 years, and then I come back to New Zealand and they're like, well, you're not registered. And then I said, well, I did 1 year before I came, and 1 year or this many, would that 1 extra year count towards? That's kind of
it would, but the hook is that to become fully registered in New Zealand, you need to be in a role here in New Zealand to be signed off. So when that happens, if you're doing your 2nd year overseas, you can't just send it all in and then they grant you registration. You have to come back.
Right, okay.
Yeah, and be in a school to get that time credited.
Right.
And
I would also just reach out to the Education Council in New Zealand as well and just see what they say, because quite often it's quite good to have that correspondence. I had sort of personally had some question marks around my registration because I taught for years in London and I taught in New Zealand, and it took me a while to work through that. But they should be able to provide, really clear steps on what is needed for you to get your registration. And then just figure out which state that aligns with, because Australia is like all different country in every state.
It's good you're doing if you did the 1st year here, it'll just be sort of maintaining that portfolio that you start here. So you'll know the expectations and what you're meant to be doing. So you have to manage that yourself, when you're overseas, because obviously someone in Victoria doesn't know the New Zealand requirement.
Yeah. The other thing, I know mostly everyone is primary here, but the one thing that tripped me up with my registration is I was often teaching PE overseas, and I was dance and drama trained in New Zealand. So it had to be, I had to have taught X amount of units that were aligned with my qualifications in New Zealand to be able to be registered as a teacher there.
Right.
So
yeah, secondary, but yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. That made a bit more sense. Thank you.
And Jasmine, I guess, yeah, registration, if you're not planning on coming back here, then, you know, it doesn't matter, no.
no.
Yeah.
The thing is as well, there's this thing in New Zealand with the 5-year expiry almost, but also teachers are so hard, like highly in demand that if you can prove that you've been teaching overseas, they're very likely to just reinstate your provisional teaching anyway.
And there is the potential that if you do become proficient in with NESA, that then that mutual recognition will then work back for you coming back to New Zealand.
Yeah.
But that's the grey part, isn't it, Anitra? That's yeah. Cool. Is there anyone else on wanting to?
I think Tanya. I think you're on mute, Tanya.
Sorry. Hi. I have probably hundreds of questions, but I've missed pretty much the whole beginning, so I need to go back and have a look. But number one, are you guys just relieving, or can you find someone something casual full time? I don't know if we can do permanent.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm a permanent consultant. So we can place you in schools from anywhere from 1 term to full-time forever.
Okay.
Yeah.
My other thing is, like, I'm pretty much thinking about doing the move like this year. But I was looking into it, and yeah, okay, I've been teaching for over 10 years and going into leadership, but now I've got to switch back and do my CV in teacher mode, I suppose. But I know you need to send, what is it, get accreditation, is that right? Is that the first step, or get your
Registration,
that's it. And then the next step will be to apply for whatever that next thing is. Is that right, over there?
you basically just need your registration for whatever state you're teaching in
New South Wales.
Are you talking about proficiency?
Yeah, I can't remember off the top of my head now. I've just gotten back from parent interviews and
So you're focusing on New South Wales, Tanya? That's where you want to go?
Yeah, Sydney and specifically, yeah. But I also read that before you can apply for something there, you need to apply for a children's.
Oh, working with children's.
Yeah, and you can only do that over there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So that halts everything, hey?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. What the process is it's you obviously need your NESA to be able to teach. In order to get your NESA, you need to first get your working with children check, which you, as you said, can only do once you're in New South Wales. So you need to go to what's called a New South Wales Service Centre, which is the place where like you get your license and all of those things. And yeah, you get that. You need 3 forms of ID. So a passport, you need an Australian form as well. So maybe like a bank card, a driver's license, something like that. And then you can apply for that. That takes anywhere from, I know mine took like 3 days to come back.
Oh, okay.
So 3 days to like 5 days probably to get that back. It's quite quick, quite a quick turnaround on that one. As soon as you get that, you can apply for your NESA.
Okay.
So you can start your NESA application.
Yeah.
But you just can't submit it.
Okay then.
Yeah, without the working children check.
Okay. So like you said, the driver's license, you can't use your New Zealand driver's license?
No, you can as a form of ID, but you will just need something Australian.
Okay,
you don't
and
need to take that
you
off.
can open a bank account online and get that all sorted through that, eh?
I don't. Oh,
You can, Commonwealth, I think it's Commonwealth Bank, one of the banks, let me have a look at it for you. You can do it before you arrive.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Same with ANZ as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. But
yeah,
I'll wait for this to be sent and I'll have a
Yeah,
look through and be in
Yeah,
touch.
and then reach out. Yeah, reach out.
Yeah,
Tanya.
because definitely. Yeah. Cool. Thank you.
No problem. Sorry, well, it's good you got on at the end.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Any more questions? Don't know who's left actually. I've lost my number of who's on. Okay. No more questions in the chat. All right. How's that? We're winding up just about right on 8. Okay. Well, thanks everyone for joining. We'll leave you to your evening. And yeah, hopefully we will hear from you soon. All the best for the rest of the term.